Oh, yeah, I can just go on here and get the PowerPoint, can't I? Okay. Here we go. This will be it. Oh. There we go. That's what I did, but.
Ready? All right. Smithville Board of Aldermen work session is now called to order. First item on the agenda is the citizen survey results ETC presentation. Floor is yours.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Robert Haycock. I'm with the ETC Institute. It's my pleasure to be here this evening and to give you a summary of the results of the recent survey that was conducted for Smithville. This is our third survey that we've conducted for the city, and so we're going to be able to show some of that data from back to 2018, and then I believe 2021, and now 2025 study. So without any more ado here, this is a footprint of ETC. Just some of you may be familiar with us, some of you may not. We're based in Olathe. We've done surveyed more than 3.6 million people just in the last 14 years. So we're one of the largest market research companies that focuses on municipal government, county government. We do transportation studies, business surveys, employee surveys, community surveys, and just about anything people can think that they want to survey. We'll help out with that. Next slide. So we'll go through here. Some of the purposes of the survey can vary from community to community. You can see here we're going to go through the purpose and methodology, topic, major findings, trends from 2018 to 2025. We'll go through something called an important satisfaction analysis. I'll explain what that means when we get there. And then finally, we'll go through benchmarking, which would compare your rankings to those nationally and regionally. Then finally, we'll open it up for any questions. Next slide. So communities have a lot of different reasons why they would want to conduct a community survey. One is to get objective data and to really better understand the true needs of the community. You may hear from some of the people, but this is an opportunity to get a wide brushstroke of input from your citizens. We want to evaluate the level of service the city provides to residents in various ways. You can measure it against yourself over time. You can also measure it against other communities, again, both regionally and nationally, as we do manage the performance. Next slide. So for this particular slide, for this particular survey, we administered it by mail and online during this last winter. We had a goal of 300 surveys, and we actually received over that. We received 323 surveys, which is really good. A lot of times it's tough to get the response, and your citizens were really willing to complete it and to engage on this issue. That produced a plus or minus 5.2 margin of error with a 95% confidence level. Next slide. This gives you a breakdown of some of the demographics. We just want to make sure that all age groups are well represented. So this kind of shows who responded to the survey. Next slide. We also wanted to look at both new and long-term residents, make sure we're not just getting feedback from people who've been here for their entire lives, but new people are new to Smithville as well. One of the things I didn't mention was this is a survey was sent to all residents that we could identify. So we purchased a list of addresses, and we sent the survey to everybody, that all the addresses we could find for Smithville. Next slide. All income groups were also well represented. Next slide. In terms of men or women, you did have slightly more of a male response than a female response, but basically the same. Next slide. In terms of major findings, next slide. I want to go through this chart before I just get into some of the very specifics. I want to lay out. This is kind of the similar layout from a lot of the findings for this survey. You'll see in the dark blue, it almost shows up as black here. as very satisfied, and then it moves to the light blue being satisfied. The gray is neutral, and then you get into dissatisfied or very dissatisfied in terms of the responses. So when we look at some of the areas on top, the quality of solid waste services, the quality of police services, and quality of customer service, you can see how many of those folks were in the top two categories. Even on the, you'll look at that and you'll figure, well, maybe 84% isn't that great, or whatever the case may be. But you have to consider you still have a big block of group. Anytime you have over 20% of your respondents saying they're neutral, to us, that's an opportunity for future surveys, for future interaction that you have with the community. It sends a signal that maybe with more information in some cases, better informed about what's going on or some of the successes the city has had, you can move some of those folks from the gray to the blue. And it's a lot easier to do that, I might add, but than trying to target some of the folks that are like the very, very dissatisfied. Some of those people are going to be kind of entrenched in their position based on their experience. And it's easier to move some of those folks from the neutral to more satisfied categories. But you can see very high ratings, especially at the top. You do have some dissatisfaction when it comes to flow of traffic, and that at the bottom. Next slide. We asked for a lot of different types of things to be in terms of satisfaction. Sorry, I'm trying to move to the next one. So almost 2/3 of the respondents were satisfied with the overall quality of services provided by the city, 65%, and the image of the city, 65%. You get down to how well the city is managing and planning growth and diversity. That's where you pick up about 38% that have concerns with kind of what's going on within the city and planning for future development. Next slide. We wanted to ask about here with various public safety services. I think, did we skip one? I think we might have missed one. It was satisfaction with perception items. So here we have the overall quality of services provided by the city, very high at 65%. And again, 27% neutral. Overall, these are people who took the time to fill out a survey only to say they don't have an opinion. So you put it in that in context. It's kind of interesting. Overall image of the city and overall appearance of the city, overall effectiveness of the city administrator and staff, and some of the other categories you see there. At the bottom, how well, again, the city is managing and planning growth and development. Next slide. So now we get into public safety services. You see very high levels of satisfaction with overall quality of local police protection, with about 80% of those responding indicating that they were very satisfied or satisfied. Certainly not true in every community. Visibility of police in neighborhoods. Again, that's one that usually is probably not as high, but your score is very a high level of satisfaction there. Visibility of police in retail areas was the least, but again, this is just based on limited perception people have and experience. Next slide. Have you or any member of your household come into contact or called the police department for services in the last 24 months? So we asked it for this year, and then we also put a box there for 2011. So 39% of the households in Smithville indicated that they have come in contact with or called the police department for something within the last 24 months. That's an increase of 4% since we asked that in 2021. Next slide. How would you rate your satisfaction with the attention received? You can see substantially almost half of the respondents who came in contact with police felt satisfied, very satisfied, I should say, with the services they received. And really only 9% were dissatisfied and 3% were dissatisfied. When you consider the nature of the issues that the police department has to deal with, that's not surprising. We then asked other perceptions of public safety. How safe do you feel in your neighborhood during the day? You can see here for the first three questions there, almost no responses were unsure or unsafe or very unsafe. So really, you can look at that and say, your police department is well regarded, and the safety that's being provided, your residents feel very safe overall. Next slide. We asked level of satisfaction with code enforcement services. Slightly less in terms of responses there, but then again, you're measuring that with 40% at the top there that are, in terms of courtesy of code enforcement employees, 40% said that they were neutral. That either probably means they haven't encountered code enforcement, or just in terms of what they've heard, they didn't register satisfied or not. But really, I think we want to go back to that. If you look at it in terms of dissatisfaction, the courtesy of staff and that at the top, that's one of those also, sometimes you might expect it to be a little higher dissatisfaction, just because people, when it comes time to being involved in that, they're either the recipient of a ticket or they're somebody who has a concern that they're trying to have the city address. So you're doing a good job in terms of your customer service with a very difficult issue. Next slide. Now we're looking at parks and recreation amenities and programs. Majority of respondents feel satisfied with parks and recreation programs and amenities. You can see at the top here, what we're doing here is we're just measuring overall, were you very satisfied or satisfied? Next slide. We asked, have you or your household participated in any of the following events and programs? So you have a lot of very specific programs here, specific events like holiday parties, card games, different things like that. One of the things we talked with your staff about was if we do a fourth survey for you in a couple of years, we might want to put that in the framework of in the last 24 months. Somebody who said that, yeah, they went to the gardening club and it was 20 years ago, that's probably not as relevant to you and doesn't give you as much information to go on. So even doing our third survey with y'all, I think we've been able to identify some areas where we can maybe finely tune this instrument a little bit more to get meaningful response. And in the end of the day, that's what you want. You want to get valid feedback for your staff to be able to better serve the community. Next slide. Overall satisfaction with city maintenance services. This gets into issues like the city's maintenance of the trail system, overall cleanliness, maintenance, and mowing of city property at the top. You do get down to the bottom, maintenance of streets in your neighborhood, maintenance of water and wastewater systems. You have a fairly significant level of concern there, especially with maintenance of streets in the neighborhood, with 31% indicating that they were dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. But overall, you can see quite a bit of blue response there, and so folks are happy with maintenance of city buildings, mowing of city property, those sorts of items. Even snow removal, though we did it in winter, so sometimes we do this in the summer. And
I think we only had one or two events this year, right? Yeah, we haven't done much. We haven't needed it much this year.
We asked the next slide. Which maintenance services do you think are the most important to the city to provide? So if we're trying to figure that out, maintenance of major city streets, which scored the lowest, you indicated, and in this particular question, they could give us two responses. So the top two were maintenance of city streets and maintenance of city's water and wastewater system, followed by maintenance of streets in the neighborhood. One thing I might say there too, and I don't know if it's applicable specifically to Smithville, but I've seen it with other cities I've worked with, is do the respondents really understand, what is the city's responsibility and what is the responsibility of the county or the state? And so in some instances, we put specific streets like, such as, this street or that street to give people better context.
Yeah, I think that's definitely worth looking at in the future, because 16992 and W we have no control over, and that's where if people complain about a traffic light, we own zero.
Right.
They're all MoDOT.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And Mayor, if I might also, after Robert makes the presentation, there are a few comments that staff has. Those are kind of things that help staff understand the There's some education and communication necessary. That's one of the items noted in here, but those are things that help us as a staff develop that work plan going forward, and we'll talk through that after Robert makes the presentation.
Slide. Level of satisfaction with finance. I think that's really important. Something to evaluate if people feel that they're getting value for their tax dollars. We realize that something like cafeteria food, no matter how good you try, people are always gonna make fun of cafeteria food. But it's good. Not every city focuses as much on some of these areas as you have, so I applaud you for doing that. Respondents feel most satisfied with customer service related to utilities and clarity of utility bills and charges. You can see throughout here with the high ratings of customer service that you received, that comes with effort, that comes with focus, hiring the right people, and support from above, from the city council to your staff, encouraging people, and recognizing people. That's one of those areas that's sometimes really difficult for communities. They struggle with the customer service, provided by employees, especially, here you're related to utilities. Sometimes those are complaints, and it's hard, like I said before with police, it's hard sometimes to get really good responses from that. But you're doing pretty well. Next slide. Level of satisfaction with communication. So we asked about the availability of information about city programs and services. Most respondents said that they're satisfied with that, with the 55%, and the quality of the city's website at 55%. I will emphasize that some of these take a while to filter down. That's not an immediate change in community perception. I've seen instances where communities, cities have said, hey, we just spent a whole lot of money on our website and updated our website. Well, not everybody uses it all the time, and it can take a while for that to filter in. So keep that in mind on some of these too. It doesn't mean you're not working hard to try to promote and increase and improve some of these items. Sometimes that the perception just takes a while to sink in. Next slide. We asked what lines or what methods of communication do you most prefer to use? 5%, and they had two choices they could do. The city newsletter was first at 55% total, and then Facebook was right behind that at 52%, and the city's website. Others, word of mouth, next door neighbor, newspaper, Instagram, all lag considerably behind those others. Next slide. We asked, have you contacted the city with a question, problem, or complaint during the last year? 75% said no, 25% said yes. Compare that to 2021 when 33% of the respondents indicated yes, they had contacted the city with a question or a problem or complaint. Sometimes you can look at that and you can say, well, we're giving good information. We've improved our communications, so people don't have as many concerns because they understand the issues. Ultimately, that's what you want to do, make people aware of the effort that you're making. Unfortunately, cities aren't always good at trumpeting their successes. They feel it's self-serving, when I don't think it really is. I think that's part of the role, is to let people know and to celebrate the positive things that you do, the efforts that are being made. Perception of quality of life in the city, very, very high scores here. And you look at, bless you, as a place to raise children, a place to live, overall quality of life, those are all extremely high rankings when you combine those, with about 88%. So this is a great place to raise kids, and 87% said is a place to live. You definitely don't see that in every community that we do surveys for. You're going to have some of what, regardless, not every city is everything to everybody. So you do at the bottom there, as a place to work, you indicate there are some concerns of people who said it below average or poor, but that's a relatively small number. The next slide we had was, will you be willing to pay increased taxes or fees for any of the community amenities and facilities listed below? Not huge numbers, but not surprising when it's not necessarily put in a context. This may be a good question to help you narrow down some, but if you're having future discussions with people in the community, you might see more support. These sort of blanket questions are helpful, but they can only take you so far in terms of what you want to rely on for those results. But clearly here, the community center with an indoor competition pool with about 49% indicated that they, and they can have multiple choices here too. So it doesn't necessarily add up, but that's why. Community center with indoor competition pool, outdoor swimming pool, and indoor swimming pool rated fairly high. Next slide. And then we asked separately, which community amenities facilities do you most prefer? Community center with indoor competition pool rated at 40%, new police station, outdoor swimming pool, and community center were all kind of in that same. In this case, they could only have two choices. The previous slide, they could pick as many as they wanted. With that, we'll get into some trends from 2018 to 2025. And really, most of the slides you're going to see, we're going to go through pretty quickly because in some areas the city definitely has plateaued a little bit. You had a really good survey results the last go around. Now it's slightly not as good in a lot of categories, but if you compare that back to 2018, you're still doing significantly better than a lot of communities when you look at it that way. Next slide. So in terms of how we rate this, we look at, even though your margin of error might have been slightly over 5%, we look at it as a significant if it's a difference of 5% between the surveys. So the next slide you see, next slide. There's a lot of information here. It's very difficult to go through, but you look at this, and if you look at just the red boxes on the right, you'll see, oh, wow, we decreased in a lot of categories since 2021. Well, that may be true, but in 6 of the 10 categories shown here, you're still significantly higher than you were in the higher levels of satisfaction than you were in 2018. So it kind of depends. Are you looking at your results 4 years ago or 7 years ago? In most categories, as we go through here, it's going to be kind of the same story. The results in a lot of categories have checked down a little bit, or 5% about that amount since 2021. But if you look back 7 years, you're still significantly higher. So next slide would be with the image of the city, the appearance of the city, all of these areas. Again, all of them showed some decrease. That's not necessarily uncommon if you reach a high level and then the next go around. And also post-COVID, we're seeing some interesting results, I would say, post-COVID. I can't say blanket, the scores are tougher to get, but there seems to be more dissatisfaction than normal just in the last few years for most of the cities I work with anyway. Satisfaction with various public safety service trends. And you can see the quality of local police protection stayed about the same, again, within that margin of error. Same thing with overall efforts to prevent crime and visibility of police in neighborhoods. Next slide. Feeling of safety trends, again, extremely high. In fact, the how safe do you feel in your neighborhood during the day increased from 95 to 98%. And same, you see a little bit, it's right on there or slightly improved for the first 4 items there. You do see a slight drop going down below, but not necessarily significant. In a couple of cases, we didn't ask a certain question in 2018. So you just have the last 2 surveys to compare the responses to. A lot of these are going to look kind of the same, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on them. I don't think there's anything that necessarily totally jumps out in a huge way. I know your staff is going to be going over some responses to that, as Cynthia had indicated, and rather save some time for her to be able to go over that with you. Same things with park and rec amenities. It's a very, very similar, although if you look at it, yes, it's gone down 5% in terms of maintenance of city parks, 5% since 2021, but you're still, almost 20% higher than you were 7 years ago. So it kind of really all depends on how you look at it and which numbers you want to compare yourself to. It'd be nice if everything, had a nice progression every single time you do a survey. It's just not the case. Next slide. Satisfaction with communication trends. Again, about the same every survey except for the last one, which is efforts by the city to keep you informed about local issues. Now we'll switch gears a little bit. So something we want to talk about, and we only have one slide because we had a lot of other slides that we're showing out of respect for your time. But something that ETC came up with called the Importance Satisfaction Index. We noticed in the industry a number of years ago that everybody was only looking at satisfaction. How satisfied are you? Well, without a context, that's a very limiting thing to be looking at. Just how satisfied are you? Let me give you a quick example. So let's say you ask me, Robert, how satisfied are you with the city's dog park? And I go, oh, I took my dog there. He got chased by the bigger dogs. It was horrible. I had this awful experience. I'm really dissatisfied with the city's dog park. But then if you put that level of satisfaction and correlate it with maybe 12 other park services, and you say how important it is to you, I might respond, well, it's not important at all. I don't want you to spend any more money on the dog park. I really want your emphasis. I'm really dissatisfied with it, but I don't really care. What I care about is youth programs or senior programs and that. So that's why we created this. And that's kind of how it works. Next slide. So again, we just did one example here. We can produce others for the city if there's a desire to do that at a later date. All this information is in the bigger findings report as well. But we asked something here. This happened to be about city maintenance services. And you see when you ask about the maintenance of major city streets, maintenance of the city's water and wastewater systems, and maintenance of streets in your neighborhoods, all three of those ranked as very high. So we had 12 items we were measuring, and those ranked 1, 2, and 3. In terms of satisfaction, they ranked 9, 11, and 12. With that, that produces a rating or a number outcome there that you can see on the right side. In terms of really what you should be prioritizing. So it doesn't mean that people are necessarily okay with snow removal or some of these other items, but in terms of trying to identify and inform the community that you're listening, the whole point was to listen. This is what they're saying your highest priorities in terms of maintenance should be. Next slide. We also talked about benchmarking and comparing to different averages. Here we just summarized a handful of them again. So the first one is satisfaction with ratings for Smithville, rated above the U.S. average in 38 of 43 areas that we looked at. And in terms of the U.S. average, also significantly higher in 32 of those areas. You can kind of see here overall feeling of safety in your community, overall quality of solid waste services, overall quality of customer service you receive from the city, and safety in your neighborhoods at night. 30% or more satisfaction than the U.S. averages. And here you go to, in terms of the what we call the Plains region, includes those states. The satisfaction was above those other areas in 35 of 43 areas that we assessed. The city rated it significantly higher than, again, the U.S. average difference of 5%. More of those areas, and you can kind of see those numbers. So some of them are really substantial. And again, just another way to look at it. If you asked about satisfaction with parks and street maintenance, and 50% or 60% of the people said they were satisfied with street maintenance, and 80% said they were satisfied with parks, you might say, okay, well, we need to focus on parks or on streets, but you don't. When you look at the comparisons, you're able to put it in a context, right? So 50% may be good or bad, you don't know, but you put it in a comparison, then you have a different way of looking at that number. So it's not just that 50% is great for everybody. It depends on how they compare. In summary, you can, next slide. So a lot of words here, but basically what we wanted to focus on was some of the highlights. Smithville is definitely a place residents are proud to call home. You can see with 88% saying this is a place to raise their kids, 87% saying a place to live, and overall quality of life, 84%. So there's a consensus. You have a really good livable community that people enjoy living here and raising their families. So that's something to be proud of for sure. City services provide a dependable foundation for the community, so satisfaction is highest for areas like solid waste, police service, and customer service from city employees. Again, customer service from city employees, I want to mention because that's not the case in a lot of communities. That's something they struggle with. How do we raise our citizen satisfaction with what we're doing? Additionally, 65% of your residents were satisfied with the services provided overall. Again, demonstrating confidence in the day-to-day operations the city is doing. Next slide. Continuing, public safety remains through the years as one of your greatest strengths. Clearly, the public has confidence in the job that your police are doing, and they feel safe, and they're appreciative of that. Residents feel exceptionally safe throughout the community, with an overwhelming 98% said they feel safe in their neighborhoods during the day, and 95% feel safe in commercial and retail areas during the day. Again, that's not always the case in all communities. Next slide. So we're going to look at parks and in terms of parks, trails, and maintenance services. They enhance the daily life here clearly. Satisfaction is especially high overall maintenance of city parks with 88%. And that's something we showed was consistent from the 3 surveys, that you're doing a good job of maintaining those. In terms of cleaning streets and public areas, maintaining city property, all of that, very positive response from the community. Residents are engaged and supportive of future improvements. Community events such as the haunted campground and youth soccer and some of those others that we looked at rated very high in terms of participation and engagement in your parks. So you just don't have nice, safe, clean parks. You have parks that people are using for a variety of activities. So that's very positive. And with that, I'm open to any questions you might have.
Thanks for that. It was I read through quite a bit of this when we received our packet, and it was helpful for you to kind of go through. Do we know exactly how many responded from when we mailed? It was 323 is what I thought. Yeah. So roughly, you think 10%, Jack, or you think that's roughly of our households, a little less? Yeah. So we're seeing a national trend of involvement of people right now. The national average is about 14%. So I'm not terribly disappointed to see 10%. We'd always like to see more, especially when it's voter turnout. We're see as low as 8%, 10%, maybe 12. We're never going to get that 100%. It's a great thought, but what are you seeing in other cities across the country? Similar turnout from a survey percentage?
You know, it just depends on the community, how engaged they are, how informed they are. I think that communities that are kind of plugged into what's going on in the city one way or another tend to want to give their opinion and do. This is not unusual to be around. This is what we try to target. Sort of the standard is that 5% plus or minus margin of error, and you see that on surveys nationwide as well. But I would say by the response we got, your community is very engaged, and yes, we would always like to have more responses if we can. The important thing is the people we did survey do accurately represent the demographics of the community. So it's not like 50% of your community was people over the age of 50 and 90% of the response was from that group. We made an effort, even though we're sending it to everybody, we made that effort to make sure that we're eyeballing that and trying to make sure it reflects your census.
Anybody else? I found it interesting that our traffic flow was higher rated during the busiest year we've ever had. But it's because people probably weren't going to work and commuting because it was 2020, 2021. We had 3 million visitors to the lake that year.
Oh, wow.
So it should have been the opposite of, traffic on 169, but people weren't going to work, so they didn't notice. Now they go to work, they're noticing, so.
Do you need this back?
Turn it over to staff then, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to be here. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Robert. This is good information. Staff believes it's helpful for us in understanding trends that are going on. And in the initial conversation that Gina and I had when Robert provided this information, we want to be careful not to talk trends yet. We saw increases, pretty significant increases. And to be quite honest, Gina and I have said, oh, darn it, these really weren't the results we wanted to see. We wanted to see a continuation of that upward. I think it'll be important down the road to see how things level off or change. What this does is it helps us as we roll into the strategic planning process that we have budgeted for this year. We will use this information to form some of the conversations and questions and things that we'll be looking at as part of that process. Gina has already been meeting with department directors and staff in each of the departments to go through the individual departmental information and look at critically at what that information is. What the feedback we think we're getting. ETC also provides us on the surveys our open-ended questions. And we have all of those responses. And Gina's walking through those with the department directors to help identify primary areas that we need to be focusing on. We know we need to focus on continuing communication and getting information out there. We can always do better on that. Working at the departmental level in ensuring that not only the department directors have this information, but we talk about the survey results at the departmental levels so staff understands what these trends and concerns might be. And as I said, to take that information then also at the staff level into discussions with the strategic planning process as well. I appreciate Robert's highlighting of the customer service piece. That's been an area, those of you who have been on the board my entire tenure, that's a priority of mine. I'm proud to see that continue to be, that rating, like Robert said, it's always going to be kind of like cafeteria food. It's never going to be 99%. But when you look at our ratings and how we've consistently stayed in there or slightly improved, and when you compare us to the regional and national, we are holding our own and doing a great job. And that is the commitment of the staff sitting around this table on a daily basis making those decisions, but then what they expect and model to their staff. And I feel like we've really worked hard on that in the last 8 years.
Well, the solid waste was impressive too. I think you were on the committee, was that 16? But did they have that in like 2016? Yeah, and we were the trashiest town in the Northland at that point, and because we had multiple trash services and stuff blowing everywhere, and I think GFL's done a great job getting carts to everybody that are usually not tipped over and blowing everywhere. It still happens, but I mean, when you used to drive down Commercial, every barbed wire fence was filled with trash, so.
You will also see as we move through the budget process, we will have discussion of how frequently we want to do this, but you will also see some information related to these findings. For instance, some discussion of our citizen newsletter. We currently include those with the water bill. Do we need to look at some different ways of doing that? What cost is that? What are the costs there? We will be bringing forward several discussions that are related to the budget. So this is an incredibly important tool to staff as we put together the priorities for the coming years, both from a strategic planning, communications, and budgetary standpoint. So we've started having discussions, and as we work through those, we'll be bringing information to you all in the coming weeks and months as well.
Yeah. And for those of you that aren't on the board that don't understand that completely, most people get the newsletter with their water bill. Gina and I found out very quickly, and Cynthia, that Housing Authority, Clay Creek, the housing up at the roundabout, their water bill goes to the landlord. They don't get the newsletter. So Gina goes out and delivers those all over the place, and we leave them out front in City Hall as well every time we do the newsletter, but that still doesn't get to everybody's house. Because there's certain people that the water bill might go to their landlord or to somebody else, so they don't see it, so. Any other questions for staff before we move on to budget? Rick is eagerly awaiting. Alrighty, budget time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and board members. Tonight, before I start, I do want to introduce, we have a financial analyst in the house now. His name is Britton Burnett. I'll have him stand back here. He comes from Casey Mo, has a wealth of knowledge behind him and started on the 23rd last week and has hit the ground running. So been very impressed so far and is loading up on his project list. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows who he is and might be reaching out at every now and then for something. So stop in and say hi if you get a chance.
Thank you. Welcome.
Is there a ring? Is there a ring? Maybe not. All right. Looking at the overview of the first quarter, most of us have been through this before on the first quarter. The first quarter is kind of the first blush of the year. We kind of take it with a grain of salt. It's the starting out. Winter months can be slower, especially when we're talking about projects. The general fund is definitely heavy on property tax, and we can get into that here shortly. So as we go through the budget this year or this quarter, we'll show what we had budgeted and what we have projected. And in almost every case at this point, since it's so early in the year, those two numbers will be the same. The second quarter, we will put a lot more analysis into the background, see where these numbers are really starting to fall in. As you look here, we have only 2 budget amendments in the first quarter. We have the first one for 26,000, which was the sewer line replacement here at City Hall. And then we also have a $27,000 increase to the OK Railroad Trail.
Is that because Chuck was on vacation? Okay.
Yeah. I didn't want to say anything about that one. Well, it'll come here soon enough.
Yeah.
So traditionally, we've done a look back and kind of a look forward trend analysis. I've included those in each one of these high-level buckets that we look at. All projects not completed in 25 have been reflected in the 26 budget. That is a big part of these budget amendments. We've definitely, when we start out next year, we're always catching up with the budget or the projects that hadn't been done, doing budget amendments for the next year. Finance and Chuck and Myra and I have put in quite a bit of work when we were developing the budget so we could avoid going into this and having so many budget amendments.
Have we made the final payment on Smiths Fork pump station and all that work? Are we done with that? Yeah.
Just awarded
The new sewer lines.
the new sewer line,
But
but
on the old project, we done? That
Oh, yeah, that's
that
all-
carried like 3 years over.
yeah, no, that's done.
Okay, so will 144th be wrapped up this year, or do you think we're gonna have to carry that one over?
We'll probably have it done in March and up and running by the end of March, but the generator
Yeah,
has a May delivery, so we will be, yeah.
It should all be paid by the end of this fiscal year.
Oh, yeah,
that's our only real big project this year, right?
no.
We, that carried over.
Oh, that carried over,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't see any budget amendments on anymore on that, hopefully. It looks
This
like
week.
it looks like they're getting pretty close when I drove by.
Not on that project, we should be pretty good. Well, no, I take that back. We have the Hills of Shannon. Yeah,
Yep.
so we will have, but we're trying to keep it within the authority that we've been provided, so we'll see.
Okay. Okay. I see, I mean, they're getting close on that project. Like, there's less pipe laying around town than there was.
All the pipes in and the pipe's been passed and they're pretty much finishing up at the wet well. The issue is that bore under 169. They've just restarted it. Spire is asking that they expose the line again and before, so the plan is they will bore within where they feel is about 20 feet from the line, expose the line and find the casing so that they know they're going under it versus through it. And then once that gets through, they're thinking that's a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then they'll tie that in and start wrapping up. They've started cleanup already.
Good. Good.
Couple other high-level things that I listed here that we can go through a little bit more when we get to those pages. Senior property tax freeze. We have an unknown but projected to be an immaterial impact to the 26 budget. Interest income, we talked about this last year about breaking this out between the general fund and the water fund. That is happening this year. And the utility rate study is proceeding as planned and on schedule for an April 7th presentation from Telus. We're at the point that we're having weekly meetings with them and things are starting to come to light. So
I know one of the things Clay County put out there that they were late on the calcs and getting bills out and stuff. So people had till the end of January to pay. It didn't seem like that really impacted us much.
a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll get into it here. I'll kind of get a little more dive into it when we get to this page as well as the property tax page.
Okay.
If we look at our historical percentage of where the general fund is, we are slightly below that. And that is a big part of why we are below, is because Clay County extended the property tax extension to January 31st. That has slowed down the reciprocal payments to the cities from Clay County. So we are expecting another decent size payment from Clay County. I don't have a projection on that. I was talking to him today and it was still in the works. So that is the reason we are a little behind percentage wise. Usually our revenues are a little above 30% in the first quarter because significantly all of the property tax is received by then. On the expenditure side, we are consistent with budget. One thing I want to highlight here is we are projecting that the state audit expense of approximately $150,000 will be paid in 2027. And I think Cynthia is going to chime in here because we have some discussion regarding that.
And we don't have to discuss this now. As we get at the end of the general fund discussion, though, I would like to have a discussion with the board as to how we would like to look at that. That $150,000, as Todd said when he kicked off the audit, they anticipate the audit taking the bulk of this fiscal year. Don't anticipate a bill coming to us until next year. As you look through the general fund information, I want you to be thinking about, we've not made any projections here, but that's $150,000 we won't be spending. Do we want to leave that in fund balance? Or do we want to look at, there were a number of items that we didn't fund that staff had brought us as priorities and needs that they requested during the budget development process. I will also let you know that we've gone through the RFQ process and interview process for the strategic planning. We had $50,000 budgeted for that. Gina a firm has been selected and we're in negotiations with them. That $50,000 is not going to cover that. So there will be a change order. It's not going to be an order of magnitude large change order, but I think that's one of the first things we need to take a look at there. So as we go through this information, you hear the general fund, can ask some questions about that. As we finalize the discussion on general fund, let's come back to this and have a little bit of discussion about how you want to proceed with that $150,000.
Looking a little more detail at the property tax revenue, we received 2 large payments so far. Like I said, we are expecting one more for sure. I would expect it in March, as far as history has taught us. If we look at the budget received, we're only at 83%. Our average has usually been a little above 87%, so we are slightly below, but definitely explainable based on the Clay County extension. We have been told that the impact of the senior property tax would be an estimated $10,000. That's obviously not set in stone, so it'll be interesting to see in the next 2 to 4 weeks what the property tax come in at. We usually expect about 10,000 per month after we get 2 or 3 large payments. So you can definitely see we are slightly behind on the property tax revenue.
I would venture to say that the extension 30 days that Clay County gave all the residents, including the seniors, probably has something to do with that,
Oh, absolutely.
including the processing. I've heard 30 to 45 days from the time that people paid in early January to mid-January, they're still processing through. So I'm assuming that's what we're
Right.
saying.
Usually within the 45 days after the due date, we have usually received our largest payments. And so definitely expecting something in March if they are on time with their payments. So by the end of March, we should be back on track on this fund or on this account.
We are in communications with the county on that though, and continue to monitor that, but it is really too early to know where we are there, and we'll have a better feel, I think, at mid-year.
And then we also, as Clay County will also say, you'll also see a bump in April after people are getting their tax refunds as well. We'll see a decent sized bump then. This is just kind of looking at the historical, giving you a visual of the historical. We budgeted 1,215,000 for this year. That is slightly above what we received last year and what we budgeted last year. We just did not go too far up, not knowing the impact of the senior freeze. And here's kind of our trend line of what we've done with the property tax and where we think it should go. There's kind of a steady line as we've kind of held it constant for the last couple of years. And after that, the trend line still does increase. So after this year, we will definitely be increasing based on actual 2026. Sales tax revenue. That is also an area we are slightly behind average in. As I note down there, November and December months came in a little less. January was quite a bit higher. So we've seen some fluctuation there. We will be closely monitoring this during the second quarter and come up with a projection of where we think we will be at the end of 2026. Must have been me. Looking at the 4-year trend of the sales tax, as you can see, we've definitely been thinking our sales tax is going to decrease a little bit year after year. We projected 1.7 million for 2026. And as I stated, we're just slightly behind where we usually are in first quarter. So the second quarter will be very interesting to see where we end up. And here's also that trend line. As you can see, like I just mentioned, we've been keeping the sales tax pretty level this year, not knowing what the economic condition would be. And then the trend line obviously continues up because we've had some very good years of sales tax. The use tax revenue, we are bringing in the use tax. Our average has typically been just a little over 21%. We are over 31% at this point of the year. Hopefully this trend continues and I can have a higher projection in there for 26 during the second quarter review. But so far so good on use tax. Use tax has been increasing quite a bit year after year for the last 2 or 3 years. As you can see here, that jump there with the actuals, we've had many years of it increasing well over 100,000, 200,000. And looking at that use tax, of course, we did level that out for this year, thinking we can't sustain that increase, but we are definitely sustaining it and building on it. So that trend line is probably more accurate at this point, but we'll see after second quarter where we're coming in with use tax. Interest income. Now, as we look at this, remember, this is just on the general fund. This is the 45% of the interest income that we've received. Right now, we are at 24.2% of budget. One could say we're pretty much right on track. I would say we're just slightly below just because of interest rates. I gotta predict that they're gonna go down at some point during this next fiscal year. So we'll be looking at that, revising that projection here as well. What I did do on this next slide is on the left-hand slide, you'll see what it is for the general fund. You'll see that huge decrease in the projection and our actual, because we are only doing 45% to the general fund. If we looked at it in total, like we have in every other year prior, that's what it would look like on the right-hand side. And again, you would be able to tell that we're just slightly below 25% by looking at that total line. Building permit revenue, we have done pretty good so far this year. Usually first quarter is very slow with going through the winter months, but we are already at 23%. We have typically done just over 20% on average for the first 3 months. And you'll see that increase during second and third quarter. Here's a look back to 4 years here. As you can see, we did have a couple months or a couple quarters in 23 and 24 where that is very typical that it comes in pretty low. Last year, Jack would have to remind me, but we had one payment come in late and it hit 25, I believe, which increased that to that 104 that you're seeing on the screen. We have quite a few things in the pipeline, so we're definitely will be looking at that 200,000 projection during second quarter. All right, looking at the bottom line fund here for the general fund. Right now, again, we do our budgeting very conservative on the revenue side, conservative on the expense side, so that our revenues are low and our expenses are typically higher because we want to make sure that we're capturing everything that could happen. That deficit we have for this year is showing right there at 780,000. We have rarely had a deficit get to that. We usually come in much better both on revenue and expenditures. And as of now, if we looked at it just as budgeted and projected, we would have roughly a $400 million bottom line at the end of 26.
So with this information, I don't know if you all have any other questions of Rick on the general fund. Again, it's very early in the year. Want to make sure we get this information to you all. But given the $150,000 expenditure that won't occur, as you know, we've done nothing with it in these numbers. We're looking for some direction from the governing body as to how to proceed on this. We'll obviously be monitoring expenditures and revenues as we do every month, and we'll report again to you all in May. But we're wondering if in the interim, if there's anything you would like to look at with regard to that $150,000. If we just want to leave that, leave it alone, have it in fund balance, and we look into the future, or if at a work session, we perhaps brought forward some of the items that didn't get funded for board consideration and review. Or if you want to hold off until mid-year and see where we are on that. As I mentioned, the strategic planning process, we will have a budget amendment. It is nowhere near that $150,000 amount. We'll be able to keep that a fairly low number, but that's just one item that's out there. So we like some direction from the board as to how you'd like to proceed with that.
I'm gonna go around the table so everybody gets a chance to give their opinion, and I'll start with Alderman Hartman, so. Start
Thank
over
you.
here and go this way.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that we just need to hold those funds. If there's certainly a budget amendment like the strategic plan that comes in over, we can consider that, but I'm not of the opinion we should spend it at this point.
Thank you. Next.
Well, I wish we would have went the other way because I'm fairly new to this, but I do agree. I think we should kind of just wait and see what happens. I do like the idea of keeping the items that were previously discussed just out there kind of as an idea. Obviously, we have an idea of other things that are being expensed, so I think just kind of seeing, I know, sorry, that doesn't really help maybe. No, that's good.
Next.
This early in the budget, especially looking at a 780,000 deficit, it's kind of hard to say where we're going to cut. And also all the other projections are on level, which I appreciate and I respect. We don't know where we're really going to go yet. Will they go up and above? I think so. But where are we going to pull the money from? I don't, I think it's too early. We have to pay for it. We have to get it, but I just don't know where. I mean, at right now, because the numbers don't really tell us anything yet.
Right.
I agree. I would like to wait and see, like maybe mid-year or
Mhm.
really add it. I think it's still way too early, like everybody else has said, to reallocate it to anything else at this point. But open to it as we see like the second quarter come in and then maybe have more discussion then.
Of course, if the city sees something, the staff sees something down the pike that we don't know about, definitely.
I would say mid-year, and I would like just to keep it and hold on to it for in case of emergency type thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well. I don't want to see those funds allocated right at the moment. I think they need to stay in the fund and yeah, we'll see what comes up later, but be safe.
Great. Thank you all. We appreciate that. We recognize we have that deficit. This is $150,000 can close that gap. We want to make sure you all had that option and we'll continue to review and bring information forward.
Thank you. Anything else on budget? Any questions for?
On general.
Yeah.
No, I'm pleased to see those use tax. Yeah, I can attest that my wife helps with that.
Well, and I will,
Yes.
Alderman Atkins also spoke, we're early in a year. When we put the budget together, we felt like we were conservative in our revenue projections, not knowing where the economy was, where it's going, and we see fluctuations pretty frequently. So I think continuing to be cautious in that review is prudent.
Did we have all 150 in general fund? I thought we had some of that coming out of wastewater also on audit expense. Are we gonna allocate it later?
Yeah.
We do.
Yes, we do have
Okay.
that broken out, so that,
Yeah.
yes.
Just fair point.
Yeah.
Mayor,
So-
was that 70-30?
I say, yeah, it wouldn't be the
60-40?
full 150 either, right?
This is true.
Yeah.
That
okay.
is true.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just making
thank
sure.
you.
Everybody ready to talk about our favorite thing? It's my favorite thing. It's what I talk about every day, so I mean.
All right, looking at the combined water and wastewater fund. Remember, this is looking at it in total. As far as revenues are going, we are right on track at 25%. We have the grant revenue that's come in so far. This is 144th Street. And then we have a total revenue side at 2,900,000. If we look at the expense side, as I mentioned kind of right in the beginning, we've had the first quarter is very slow starting out. Projects are just getting going. It's winter time. A lot of these projects can't get started. So looking at a 10% of budget expenditure is appropriate at this point. Looking at water and wastewater sales revenue, we are above our average look back that we do here at just looking at water sales, we are at 25.6% of budget. And that is on an average of 23.4. That also is reflected in the wastewater sales as well. Both of those are up. And as we all know, we did not increase rates. So more than likely, people are using more water at this time during this first quarter. Again, this is a percentage based on the revenue that we've brought in, so that can fluctuate that percentage. But overall, we definitely believe the water usage is up, and no rate has been increased for 2026. Looking at that 4-year history for both water and wastewater, you can kind of see as we've slowly increased our actuals. This year we have actuals budgeted just over where we budgeted last year. We knew going into this year we weren't doing a rate increase right away, so our budget at this point is the $3,750,000 for the water. And then on the wastewater sales, again, we've increased that just slightly over our budget last year. Second quarter will definitely, as I have said multiple times now, second quarter will definitely be a sign of where this is trending to. Looking at the bottom line here, we had that infusion of the bonds, the 2025 COPs for 2025. Then we are showing most of that expense in 2026. We have most of that 16.7 million of expenses is related to CIP projects. And as of right now, our budget fund balance for the water fund at 7.8, that is right in line with prior years as well. Looking at a few of our sales tax funds, again, very early in the year, just starting to go on a lot of these projects. You can see that 23.4% in the sales tax, that kind of goes in line with what the sales tax we were looking at prior overall, because this follows that same methodology. It's just the 0.5-cent sales tax. So we are slightly below where we would typically be. That 600,000 of grant reimbursements is mark reimbursement for the Second Creek sidewalks. The Second Creek sidewalks is by far the biggest project in 2026. We also, out of this fund, do a debt service transfer. And then also we have some smaller engineering costs coming out of this in 2026. looking how we kind of had this looking last year, we had quite a big budget for last year. Some of those projects have been rolled up into the operating fund of the water fund just because they are bonded projects now. So as you kind of look at this, we're keeping our projection right where it should be, at the 1.3 million. And that does include, that 1.3 does include the reimbursement. Looking at the transportation sales tax fund, again, this is slightly behind where we typically like to see it. Some of the bigger projects coming out of here is the commercial street sidewalks, as I have noted up there, commercial overlay, and the annual asphalt and overlay program that comes out of this fund.
Rick, I don't want to get bogged down into the weeds, but are we paying out, are they doing draws, construction draws as they complete parts of the commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just like every project.
Every other project.
Yeah,
Okay.
every other
Yeah, that's what I thought.
project,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
Shift change.
And again, looking at that history there. So we do have that grant, as I noted on the previous slide there, of just shy of 700,000, which is reflected in here. Looking at park and stormwater sales tax fund. Again, coming in at 22.6%. Come some of the bigger projects that we have rolling in here is the OK Railroad Trail. That is that 184,000 reimbursement we will be receiving when doing this project. We also have Dundee going through here, stormwater improvements, and Forest Oak stormwater improvements. I may have skipped one there. As you can see here, we've been pretty consistent in the park and stormwater sales tax fund as far as our expenditures and revenues. Public safety sales tax fund. This is a graph that you've seen multiple times. As we kind of go through here, on the police side, the personnel and benefits, that 91,000, that does include the January step addition. That loggers amount of 33,500, that will decrease a little bit because we're having the loggers implementation on July 1st. And the equipment and training, that should come in pretty much as budget there. Animal control expenses, we are projecting this to come in just slightly below. We are just now getting word that the animal control vehicle will be ready soon. So that'll be our trigger to be able to move forward with this project. As far as revenues, we are, even though that says 14.9%, gotta remember, we just started this, money just started flowing in November, December of 25. So it starts off slow, builds up steam. We still are projecting that 700,000 to be met in 2026.
If you'll recall, our projections, as we put that together, were based on the historical projections of the first year of the other sales taxes. So we continue to monitor that and it tracks to be able to hit those numbers.
And then on the expenditure side, both of those increases for the police salary and benefits, we will make that journal entry to the general fund at a future date. Again, the loggers has been delayed until July 1st. The animal control vehicle we have gotten word that it will be available soon. So we will begin recruitment once we get everything set in place. And union negotiations will begin very soon. That any contract changes will require a budget amendment. Looking at the sanitation fund, both revenues and expenditures are coming in right on par, right for first quarter, right where we would expect this. Again, this is very much a timing fund, because we may not get the invoice for a certain month timely and get it turned around. But as of first quarter, those first 3 months, everything is coming in as planned. Looking at the VERF, the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund, we will do, before second quarter is over, we will do the transfer, the inter-fund transfer for the 433,000. We'll make that, and it will go from the fund to the general fund. And then the expenditure side, we are on track. We've kind of taken a step back and said, hey, our fleet is looking good. All of our staff are happy right now. We are looking at some potential exchanges, but only if it would be beneficial to the city. A couple other things that recently came up is the fuel cards. They go through a vendor called WEX. We actually use WEX right now. If we switch to the enterprise fleet management system, their WEX system, a lot of the mileage and a lot of data collection will be automatic for us. We see that as a huge benefit. There's going to be zero cost to the city on making that switch. So we're in talks of doing that very soon. The other thing that we've started talking about is the geotab, which is the GPS. The police already have that. We are looking at putting that into most of our other vehicles. We will obviously come and have that discussion with you guys if we proceed that way, want to proceed that way. There is a small cost to that, but right now, Enterprise Fleet Management has told us that if we would get on their program for the geotab, there'd be no additional cost to have it linked up to our GIS, which would also help out with the snowplow routes that we were doing. So it might be a good time to make that decision.
Does that also, the system that we're talking about, does that also keep track of hours? Since I know some of our vehicles, like police, they sit still as well. It's not always mileage. Yeah, because if they're sitting out running radar, they're running up hours, not miles, right? So.
And also by going to both the WEX fuel cards and the geotab with Enterprise, those two systems talk as well. So it can tell if we're fueling and the car's 50 feet away or right there at 5 feet away. So there's a lot of benefits to it. So we'll bring that to you once we finalize looking at the geotab.
Cool.
And I might just jump in just real quick. Rick and I were talking about this just this morning. We meet on a periodic basis with our rep from Enterprise, and we'll be meeting next week. They do a thorough analysis also looking at our vehicles. We've not wanted to go into replacing vehicles frequently, but they do help us plan. We are going to be evaluating some vehicles that they will recommend for go ahead and replace. We look at that so that we can hold our expenditures equal to or less than what we've done and be able to get some money back on those. So that's been the real value of having Enterprise, as well as being able to look at this different analysis of the fleet. So continue to monitor that. And that will be one of the things we'll have Britain involved in, as well as is continual review of that, the cost benefit of that program.
We will only do exchanges if it's beneficial to the city. So wrapping up the 3-month review, property tax, sales tax, lagging just slightly below. It's really too early to have a good analysis of where this will end up. Use tax, of course, has increased a lot more than we projected. Building permits, again, doing very well. On the expenditure side, just overall, general fund, where everything is coming in just as planned. Capital budgets, the CIP, again, those will really come into focus on the second quarter when these projects start. Any questions?
Okey dokey. Thanks. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the work session.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn work session.
Thank you. To have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. We're adjourned. You have a couple minutes while Linda gets the video ready if you need to take a break.
Down.